Okay, so my name is Mike Perry. I'm a developer at Astronomer. Can everybody hear me back there? Okay. So I started off doing iOS and Android development at UC back in like 2012. You know, Objective-C was my first language. Don't hate me. But out of necessity, had to learn Android because we were building out. So actually, Chris right there, he helped me on this. So we kind of built a mini Uber for UC. That was my first large-scale system that I helped work on. So I would still say mobile development is my passion. I love to do it. I still do it on the side. But working at a startup like Astronomer, we're basically a team of just generalists. So everybody does everything. So pros and cons of that means we work very long hours. I'm sure everybody else does too. But the good thing about it for me is that I love to learn, and I love to learn every technology, every platform there is. So I get to get my hands dirty and Python one day, Go the next, and we're primarily Node.js. So that's where most of our production code is in Node. But so it's been great. I've been at Astronomer since the end of June 2016, and just a quick background on Astronomer. It started out as a company called UserCycle, and the main goal then was just building a tool for visualizations. So you already have the data, and we're building charts for you. We're trying to get some insights for your business. But the founders at the time, and again, this was before I got there, but they realized that we were really late to that game. There's all these companies that are building charts and dashboards, and Tableau is the biggest one. So it's kind of a hard market to be in and a hard market to differentiate yourself in. So we pivoted, like every startup ever, and our pivot kind of was inspired by our realization that getting data in the first place is really hard. As we all start moving towards architecting our systems better, so everybody's moving towards it's been moving towards microservices. So monoliths are bad, break everything up. Now you have, instead of one database, you have 5. Some of them NoSQL, some of them SQL. So data's all over the place. And so working at UC, I saw this because we had systems from the 60s. We had the main student information system was a mainframe. I think they've changed that hopefully recently. But just in UCIT alone, there's a bunch of different organizations. Each of them have their own processes, their own tools, their own databases. It was always interesting to try to get access to data that wasn't in your unit. So if you were trying to build a new app or just get reports, it was impossible. So my friend at the time, his name's Alois, he's another developer at Astronomer, wouldn't shut up about it. So I came down and talked to the founders, and I realized that the idea, this isn't an original idea either, but I think it's a problem that nobody solved yet completely, and there's plenty of space to differentiate yourself as a company. So now we're focused on building a modern data platform that lets you move data from anywhere to anywhere. So database to database, database to API, API to database, ingesting events from webhooks, clickstream, which is the point of today's talk, even FTP. We have customers sending us CSV files from FTP and loading them into their databases. You wouldn't believe how many people still all of their business insights are in Excel spreadsheets. It's awesome. So yes, we support that. But
just curious.
Yeah.
You said you got later in the game. So since you are a startup, who is the venture capitalist to give you the funding?
Who's the capital?
Yeah.
So when we first made our pivot, so at first they were self-funded for a while, back when it was UserCycle. But then when we made the pivot, the idea started making sense to more investors. So the first one, we went to they went to AngelPad in New York, which I think was $50K or something. And then we worked out of the Brandery for a year. I can't remember if they actually gave us money or not, but we were there. And then last year we raised a 1.9 seed, and I can't say any more yet because it's not actually settled. But we'll actually probably be making announcements soon. We're not to Series A yet. We're at what we call a post-seed round, which don't ask me what the hell that means. I don't know. It's finance speak. But we're raising more money, and we're going to raise even more money, hopefully, in probably 8 to 12 months. So I think I honestly don't know the names of the VCs, but we have like 3 or 4, I think, right now.
Local or national?
Most of them are in the state. We are branching out more. I'll just say that. And so the next rounds will be a wider net. So our platform, we're calling it data router. I mean, because I don't. The whole idea is routing data, moving it wherever you want it to go. So a lot of companies now have one tool for their email, another tool for like the marketing and their CRM, and so Salesforce, HubSpot, your payments of Stripe or PayPal. Then again, your own data, IoT, which is we mentioned that as a topic for an upcoming talk. But like all of these things are generating so much data. It's actually it's insane how much. Like just a few quick stats that I like to throw out there. Like only 0.5% of all data ever generated is actually analyzed and used. And I think a part of that is the fact that it's hard to get it, hard to put it into a place that makes it easy for a data scientist or an analyst to analyze it. And then also in 2015, the amount of data produced every 2 days matches the amount of data produced in all of history prior to 2003. So much data, and I think a big space for Astronomer to play in. So we have competitors. Like there are people doing this too, but we just think there's such a large pie right now that it makes sense. And so far, investors agree. So our primary offering is SaaS-based right now, but the goal in the future is to bundle up all of Astronomer, so data router, everything that we have, and be able to install it on somebody's own private cloud. So that's gonna. I would say for most people, they would use our SaaS, but like some big companies would want to have their own control over all of this stuff. So because we're really big on open source, and that means that we use a lot of tools. So for instance, Kafka, a data streaming solution. So that's an Apache project. Apache Airflow is another open source product that we use for scheduling batch jobs. And so really we're writing a lot of, I guess you'd call it the glue that kind of pieces all this together, makes a platform out of it. And that's going to be what we sell to our customers for enterprise, but we're also going to open source everything that we do. So anything that's built on top of these other tools will be open sourced. I think except for like, I think monitoring will be our premium thing. I don't know, not my job. But actually, so back to clickstream. So that's a source. That's a data type. That's like we want to own the pipes for all types of data, no matter where it's coming from. Clickstream is one of them, and clickstream is really just the collection of like the collection of data that describes what your user is doing in your app. So user installed my app. User went to the home page or opened the app, saw the home page. Maybe if it's a store app, they clicked this product, added it to their cart, removed it from their cart. Here's the entire path that they went through the app. And I mean, this type of information is critical. I mean, if you're going to be making decisions on what your product roadmap should look like, what features you should add, what you should remove, it's better if you have like some insight in what the users actually like, what they don't like. So nowadays, like there's a plethora of tools. There's Google Analytics, there's Mixpanel, I'll show you eventually our dashboard. There's like 30 different providers on there that they present clickstream events in different ways. They have different features, and a lot of times we see people that they want to use all of them all at once. Topic for today is how does Astronomer support clickstream, and we do that with a suite of SDKs so the main one is called Analytics.js. That's for browser and server-side JavaScript environments, but it has offerings for iOS and Android too, native offerings. Obviously today, Analytics for Android, we're going to talk about what that looks like and how it can help you simplify the collection of your clickstream data. Full disclosure, we did not write Analytics for Android. Like I said, we're really big on open source, and we don't mind taking it if it's already there. So we took it, and It was originally built by one of our competitors named Segment. They open source all of their stuff, and it's pretty good. Like, it does what we need it to do. It does, it defines a simple API that you can use to capture events and log them to many tools, but not have to like worry about installing all those tools SDKs and having separate calls that track events to one or to the other. So Astronomer maintains our own fork of the analytics SDKs, yeah, like I said, it just gives that single API to be able to get data to these tools. Some people ask us like, why use Astronomer if there's somebody that's already built it? I'm not going to sell you on us, but it kind of boils down to that we feel that we're easier to work with than Segment. So they're bigger. I think they raised like $40-some million out in Silicon Valley. You go to them, they're going to say 8 months to get something, whereas our main goal is to support every integration that we possibly can. So if there's something on our platform that we don't support, I don't have an example, but we would build it for you, and we would work more. I think we would work more closely with you to get it done. Our sales guys sometimes say Segment is the better option depending on your use case, but I don't know. So if you're doing this yourself, if you're not using a library like the Analytics SDK, sometimes the first option would just be add the Google Analytics for Android SDK, supported by Android or supported by Google. Google makes Android, like it's basically the native analytics product. I basically just took these instructions straight from the Google website. So it's like a 7-step process. You have to add permissions for networking, which you probably already have, but add the library to your build.gradle. So actually have to apply a plugin and as well as install the library itself. And then in their example, like they actually they recommend a singleton in the application, which is great for encapsulation, I guess. Not really, but so you just instantiate one of these analytics objects. Then somewhere down the line in your activity or fragment, when you're trying to actually track an event, you would get that analytics instance, and you would start tracking events. So tracking screen views and sending other types of events are just like those are pretty standard in any library. So user view this activity or this fragment. You can send a custom event, like I said, like adding an item to a cart or deleting an email or whatever the context of your app is. So that's just for Google Analytics. What typically happens, especially in a larger company, is somebody says, well, this tool gives me a feature that Google Analytics does not, and we want to use it. It could be we want to use it instead, or we want to use it as well. So then as a developer, you have to go and look up the Mixpanel SDK, and yes, they have one. They have a native SDK for Android, so add that to your build.gradle. Make sure your permissions are set. This one actually needs Bluetooth. Instantiate the Mixpanel tracker object, and then start tracking an event to Mixpanel. So at this point, depending on what the decision was, whether you're using one or the other or both, you might have two separate libraries in there just tracking events, and different calls. Like this looks completely different. So there's a lot of overhead that, as a developer, like I don't think anybody really wants to write code just for this purpose. Yeah, use the analytics SDKs. If you need to capture events about your users, the simplest way, add the analytics SDK to your app. You create a single instance of an object that tracks events to any tool that you've enabled in the Astronomer platform. It's less work, less maintenance for you. This is the link to where Analytics Android is at. So this is our fork of it. At the end of the talk, I'll actually demo what it looks like so we can compare versus the Analytics SDK and the Mixpanel SDK. But just real quick, just some of the basic features. This is what it would look like calling, so identifying a user within your app. So the identify method pretty much just ties any action that your user performs to a user. So you would just say analytics identify, pass in an ID, so a database ID or username, whatever. And then from then on, any other call you make, any subsequent call to the analytics SDK would tie those events to that user. So tracking any event that the user performs, screen to track any screen they viewed. You can also enable automatic screen instrumentation. So that'll basically just look in your manifest and see, okay, this activity is named this. The user's, this is the activity they're on, and it'll just track it with that name when the user views it. So it's really simple. There's probably 30 or 40 classes in this SDK, but there's not a whole lot that it's doing. The main features, are just sending events to different integrations. But it does it in a way that tries to minimize network traffic and drain on the battery life. So every time you call one of these methods, it's not making a network call every time, and it's not tracking everything in the background. So what it does is it batches these events and it writes them to disk. The default is 20 events at a time, so it'll write them to disk, and then when it gets to that limit, then it'll batch send them to us at Astronomer. And since they're written to disk, you don't have to worry about losing data if the app is crashing, like if it crashes or whatever. If they delete your app, that could potentially lose like 20 events, but can't help you there. So like one of the best features of the Analytics SDK is it doesn't bundle any additional libraries with it. So you can use the Google Analytics SDK for the Analytics SDK, but it's not bundled in by default. So when an event is tracked and is sent to api.astronomer.io, we first check your Astronomer settings and see, okay, Google Analytics is turned on or Mixpanel is turned on, and we proxy those events on from our server side. So sometimes you may want to enable client-side tracking, in which case you can do that with adding the Google Analytics SDK to your app and then telling the Analytics instance to use it. But you'd really only want to do that if that SDK provides some fancy feature, like some of them set up push notifications for you somehow. I haven't actually looked into that. Ryan, I think, knows more about that, wherever he is. Some of them, when you make a track call, some of them like automatically record where the user's finger was, so they do like some heat map detection. But unless you're using any of those special features that are outside of the standard Analytics API, there's no point, because then you're just adding more weight to your app. You have more methods, so you got to worry about the dex limit. So the library is pretty small. It's 123 kilobytes. There's 1,000 methods versus, so the native Google Analytics library has 1739 or 1798. Sorry. So we have less methods in our library than they do. So obviously they must have some features. I don't know all those extra features they have, but if all you're wanting to do is track some events, this is a more lightweight way to do it. So I'm gonna demo what this looks like, and when you're using Astronomer. So just go over here. So this is version 1 of the Astronomer app. So this has actually been running for about a year now. It's written in a framework called Meteor, which I just love so much. But we got to start it. But we're in kind of A/B testing with version 2, so it's going to look nicer. It's going to be better. It's written in React, and I don't know, it's less of a Frankenstein, I think. But really, this is all of our integrations that we support for Clickstream. Google Analytics over on the left there. Mixpanel is another big one down here somewhere. Yep. So when you're getting started with the Astronomer platform, you just create an account, and you can create an app. I already did this for this talk. GDG meetup. So Once you create your app, that gives you a app ID. So this is what you would use to, when you're instantiating the analytics library, this is what you would just pass to it to get the events moving. And you would just want to turn on these integrations when you're ready to use them. So for Google Analytics, it has a few configuration settings. Most important ones are the tracking ID. This is how GA identifies where the app's coming from. It has a bunch of advanced stuff, like you can even set up custom mappings and say like when I type like analytics.track purchased, like you can map that to another type of event if you want to track it a different way for Google Analytics. So you can track these events in different ways across different tools, but only make one call. Like that's one thing that we had on top of this. But let's see, yeah. So over here, so this is Google Analytics. I'm just going to show real quick running an app and logging some events and seeing them pop up over here. So I've configured Google Analytics with my tracking ID, and over here we have some code. So you can't see that very well. Let's see if, hold on one second. Can you guys read that? Yeah? Everybody can see that? All right. So if you remember, I showed what it looks like to set up Google Analytics or Mixpanel. It's fairly similar with the Analytics SDK. So you really you build an Analytics instance, and you just basically set a singleton in your app. And then from then on, any calls to Analytics would use that singleton. You pass in your write key. So this is what I got from my Astronomer settings over here, this GMG. So just pass that into the Analytics builder. And then inside of your activity or fragment or anything like that, you basically just say analytics.with track. So like in this app, I'm gonna run it in a second. It's gonna have two buttons. And a text field. When button A is clicked, we're gonna just track button A clicked and button B clicked. Nothing too fancy here. And then when I type in a name in a text field, I can identify that user, so that would tie those events to that particular user. So this right here is really where the magic happens. So when you do track, when you call this method, we're going to look at the integrations that you've turned on. And if they support server-side tracking, we'll just automatically send those events to all of them. So there's no need to redeploy your app, add more libraries. Like I said, you can, but this just gives you more power to turn on or enable or disable these things at will. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this. And so this is not what it's supposed to look like. I'm going to turn this off, actually. Oh, that might be, yeah. Is that a setting here? Oh. Oh, gotcha. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. There we go. All right. So the first thing you would do, as soon as you can, you'd want to identify the user. So whether it's a login screen or maybe you have your own custom, like maybe you generate a random ID for your users before they log, I don't know, like whatever you want to do, you would want to identify them. So maybe, there we go. All right, so you'd identify your user, and then you can start tracking events. So first thing you can look at is the live stream on our app. So this is just going to be kind of your way of seeing events come in real time. So like down here, identified user ID Mike. Application will start at 7:12. That's me. Start logging events. Just clicking buttons, and like I said, eventually those events are going to, after the cache is cleared, they'll start popping up over here. I can also just flush them. So there's all the events showing up in the Astronomer platform. So this is, we're not really storing these. This is just a way for us to show these events coming in real time. But they're immediately processed and sent to the integration itself. So in this case, Google Analytics. It's kind of, I think it's on a delay slightly. So that once this little line gets over here, eventually some more events show up in here. These numbers will increase.
Spike there on the left, where it's like almost 20.
This one?
Those events that you just tracked.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Before it was 0 real-time users.
Gotcha. Yeah, it just takes a second to update right here for some reason. I don't know. So there's the events. I don't know why it. Yeah, so I mean, it logged my events, but it's not, I don't know. Sometimes I find GA to be strange in the way it behaves, but I don't know, do you have an answer for that?
Your first user didn't do anything. He started up the app.
Gotcha.
So like events weren't. So like if you go back, you can see the different types of events that were tracked. So they're for different users. So application started, that was Mike Perry.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Or I guess, oh, the number of events. Oh, I see.
Yeah, yeah. It was one before, so now it's, yeah, now it's going to go up. So I mean, yeah, nothing earth-shattering here, but that would be, I don't know. I mean, if you guys want me to, I can show you Mixpanel 2. I think I don't have an account. I have to bore you with setting up that account, but in a nutshell, that's really what analytics is. It's just kind of a wrapper on top of all these different tools. Lets you, it gives you more flexibility in which tools you use. Yeah, I mean, that's why we recommend it. So anybody can sign up at Astronomer or app.astronomer.io. You can download or not download, but add the Analytics SDK to your app. So you can either use, if you use Maven or Gradle, you can just add it in your build.gradle, and then just get started. So the example app that I just showed here, this is in the repo itself, under analytics samples. There's a where sample as well. So if you're instrumenting your watch app or your wear app, I guess, there's support for that. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much the analytics SDK. I got Q&A on here. I can also, we can talk more about what Astronomer does aside from Clickstream, but that's relevant to, I think, this meetup.
So is that list that you had with all the different frameworks on there, is that
the tile?
all the tiles?
Yeah.
Are those the only ones that you'll support right now?
For Clickstream, so version 2 of our product is going to have Clickstream, and it's going to have all this other stuff that I talked about back here. So we have a lot of the infrastructure support built in for like ETL jobs, like getting data from databases, and so we are setting up those jobs kind of by hand right now. Manually creating records in a database that basically powers our job scheduling platform, which is Apache Airflow. But soon you will be able to do all of that yourself. Like there won't need to be Astronomer, and I can't wait because like I don't want to be doing that manually ever again. But so just like you would come into the current Astronomer app and enable certain integrations, here soon you'll be able to say, okay, I want data from Microsoft SQL Server, and I want to take it to Redshift or I want data from Stripe. I want to send it to Redshift or MS SQL, whatever. The UI will allow you to set up those workflows and schedule them and all of that. So this is just, like I said, just a one piece of our product, and this I think eventually, like, it's a huge part right now. Like, this is what we sell, and this is what kind of keeps the lights on. But in a year, it'll be, I think, one of our smaller products. So I mainly work in like the ETL side of things. We have another open source framework. It's called Aries. It's a Node.js. Currently, it's Node.js, but we're working on a Python version. Our goal is to be completely language independent, so we'll have tools for any language. But it's basically just a framework that helps you write ETL jobs. So get data, transform the data, load it somewhere else. And actually, like, Clickstream, like, since it's really just another source, another way to get data, the way that we process Clickstream events is going to be the exact same way that we process ETL jobs. So it's all going to be funneled through the Astronomer platform, batched and streamed on a Kafka stream, and then processed in near real time. That's.
How hard is it to add another one of those tiles?
To add one? Well, so most of the work is writing an integration. So I'll show you what an actual integration looks like. So where is this all on Astronomer integrations?
Astronomer-integration.
Yeah. All right. For instance, our Analytics.js, so this is JavaScript integration for Google Analytics. It's its own project, and it basically just implements those track identify page methods. So the Analytics SDK defines the API for what these integrations need to implement, and then if you just want to add a new one, you implement them. So the important part here is page. So like when you call analytics.page, all the integrations you have turned on are going to get this page method called with the data that you passed in. So that's for client-side tracking. Identify is the same way. Track right here. I can also show the. I don't think Android is in our main org, right? Yeah. So in the event that you did, if you wanted to bundle the analytics Google Analytics integration for Android in your app, we do have a native SDK for that. Analytics, actually, Android. So yeah, it's Analytics Android integration Google Analytics. Yep. So I mean that's the same thing as like the JavaScript version. It has, so here's the class that implements the Analytics API, and you can see that it's not necessarily trivial. It's 300 lines of code, but we typically, what do we say, like 1 to 2 weeks that we crank these things out. I mean, the Java would be probably more than that, but the JavaScript ones we crank out faster.
The website ones.
Yeah, the website ones. Let's see, where's track? There we go. So here's the implementation for the screen method, and here's identify, and here's track. So if you wanted to keep adding more, we would need to spend some dev time and actually implement it. So that would probably take a couple weeks, but then actually adding a tile, like 5 minutes. So we could add a tile. Just might not have. Yeah. Yep.
So I work for .loop, and we got these guys working. We're integrating with Astronomer, and so our situation was that we track some analytics in our own we're doing a different analytics engine, and then our business people came to us and said, hey, we want to like track stuff in another analytics engine. So I think what we ended up doing was going with these guys because we can just now only make one call, and then they can turn it on to wherever
Yeah.
they want, and they can send some to some data or to some stuff, and some to Google Analytics and whatever. So the question I was going to ask you is, I know we have like some of our stuff goes into an internal database or whatever.
Mhm.
Is that just we like?
Yeah. So you guys set up with Redshift. So that is one of the integrations. Top right. Oh, yep. Yeah. So you can turn on Amazon Redshift, and that would just basically tell us that you want to start sending data to your own Redshift. So the way that our event system works is basically all these events come into our API. They're immediately sent to a Kinesis stream right now. They're going to be moved over to our Kafka in our cluster. But basically all it is a stream is just, it guarantees a certain retention period, and multiple services can read data off that stream and process it in different ways. So as the data is coming in, it's getting put in this stream, and so you have Google Analytics turned on. So we have one consumer of that stream that, gets all the Google Analytics events and sends it to Google Analytics. There's another one that knows how to send events to Redshift. So if you've turned on Amazon Redshift, reads that same data off the stream, sends it to Redshift. Yeah, that's pretty much all that is. Did that answer anything?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Some of the things you might see in Google Analytics, like the geography tracking, or geography analytics, or like user demographic analytics. How do you guys handle that?
The IP addresses are so actually, Greg has a funny story. For a while, they were being tracked in over here in Virginia, which is where our VPC was in AWS. But now, so the SDK does track or get the IP address, and so it can infer right now that I have 27 events coming from Mason. And depending on the tool you're using, I think most of them will have demographic charts like this, and just show you where your users are coming from. So, but I think it's not like hyper local, like it's not GPS, it's IP address. So it's, I don't know, depends on how granular you want to get. But I would guess that there's probably a few, like maybe even the Google Analytics SDK. If you bundle that into, like if you said analytics.use, the client side GA1, you could probably enable like GPS tracking there. Now maybe that would be a reason you would want to use client side tracking. But if IP is good enough, like I said, stick to server side.
How do you guys handle like questions about privacy? Because I imagine each of those services will have like a different, privacy policies.
So
like a mega privacy policy that covers.
do we have one? I mean, we have one. I'm not a expert on legalese, but I think. So when you say questions about privacy, like how does Astronomer?
So if in my app, if I use Google Analytics,
Yeah.
then I would just turn to the Google Analytics privacy policy, right? If people have questions.
Yeah. So our privacy policy is basically just going to say something like, we have no like it's not our fault, because we're sending the data to those different services. So yeah, I think they would govern more of the privacy around them, because we're basically just proxying them that way. I don't know. We definitely have a privacy policy somewhere around here, if you want to check it out. Yeah. Well, we store them if you ask us to. If you want, it's like some people want, they want to like always have an archive of every event that they've ever had. So we can write them for you and like kind of keep a record of them. So like say you wanted to bring all of your analytics in-house one day. Like right now, all these like Google Analytics or Mixpanel, those are good enough tools for now, but you think maybe one day we're going to have our own data scientists and our own like team of data engineers. Maybe you just want the events to go straight to your Redshift at that point, but you want to get all your historical data that you previously had sent to all these different tools. So we can enable some like historical archiving for you, but that's not what we don't want to do that. That's not what that's not our main goal. So.
So I guess, right. So I guess if I use Astronomer in my app, I can still just go with like the Google Analytics
Mhm.
policy or whatever.
Yeah.
It's set to it now.
Yeah. Any more? All right. Well, thanks for hearing me drone on. But if you have any questions or want to like ask more about how to actually use this, feel free to reach out to us. I'm Mike at Astronomer. It's Ryan at Astronomer. If you find an issue in any of the SDKs or something doesn't make sense, poor documentation, which we are pretty guilty of, honestly. Like we're working on making that better. Open up an issue. Like I said, this is all open source, so feel free to contribute if you want. But yep, that's all I got. Thanks.